There are two types of influences towards your actions: your conscious choices, which are choices you make intentionally, and your subconscious choices, choices that you make for reasons you may not be immediately aware of. I believe that your subconscious is created through repetitive actions or experiences, and experiences leave a greater impact depending on your emotions. When you lack experience or awareness, it's easier to go with the flow depending on your emotions. This is why it's important to become aware of the many possibilities that could happen, even if those possibilities are unlikely. Without experience, it is easier for others to take advantage of you and influence you to take actions you may regret later. Not everyone will try to take advantage of you, but because it is impossible to read minds, you must learn to navigate the social constructs of communication. This will give you the ability to better take control of your life rather than blindly going with the flow in the hands of someone who may not be good for you. The goal for this video is to encourage you to actively take control of your life and mindset, along with helping you understand yourself and others better. In this video, we will talk about actions being a reflection of the conscious and subconscious mindset, confidence, desire and intentions, belief and trust. I'm going to give you some scenario examples: using emotions to guide introspection, accountability, accepting who you are, the good and the bad. Alright, so before we go over everything, I'm just going to go ahead and go over a couple of things. Actions are shaped by thoughts, and thoughts can sometimes be misinformed, so keep that in the back of your mind when it comes to anything. But it's also important to recognize that we are not our actions and our thoughts. We're technically just a pilot of our own life, and our thoughts are things that we can pick and choose that are influenced by subconscious experiences or experiences that we've already put in our subconscious. Actions are a result of thoughts, and thoughts are collections of understanding, basically. They are the roadmap that we believe is best to achieve our goals and desires. With more experience, we are able to expand that roadmap, and experience comes from the world around us. They are shaped by our understanding of those moments, such as being punished or rewarded, learning to avoid, accept, or even when we decide to just give up. And giving up is a reflection of the lack of willingness to understand or change. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a routine, and that becomes addictive. It becomes easier to repeat, so keep that in mind as well. And when it comes to defining your character, there's no such thing as a permanent character flaw, but rather a lack of skill/understanding of your character. Keep in mind that skills require training to overcome that awkward initial phase of development. So if you find something about yourself that you're not happy about, maybe you have a lack of skill or understanding about that scenario or that thing that you're unhappy about, and you can actively make the choices to train yourself to view that situation better or to handle that situation better. But everything's one step at a time. Don't feel like you need to change everything right off the bat. So yeah, take it easy. Another point to keep in mind about this video is that it was influenced because of the idea of misunderstandings. Those are often a problem that a lot of people find within when it comes to communicating with others. This is going to try to help minimize those random reasons, the ignorance you may have, anything like that, those misunderstandings, in favor of trying to actually understand yourself and others, being intentional with your actions. Alright, so without further ado, let's begin. Actions being a reflection of the conscious and subconscious mindset. Actions are a tool to achieve your goals or desires. They reflect what's on your mind to some extent. Actions in their true form clearly reflect that. You're thirsty, you grab a drink of water, and that's what's on your mind. Anyone who sees that is going to be like, okay, this guy's drinking water, this girl's drinking water, they're thinking about water. They're thirsty. Then you got actions that aren't necessarily immediately apparent, and they tend to be in opposition of what you are trying to convey. So like an example would be, you like someone, so you decide to pick on them. You call them names or whatever, because you're trying to hide that for some reason. So that action alone of picking on them could reflect that you like them, but it may not be immediately apparent. Especially since that's kind of a tactic that's considered immature. unless you're like really experienced in bantering, which is the playful exchange of teasing remarks, that action can be kind of questionable. Then you got repetitive actions. When you're first learning to drive a car, you're inexperienced, you don't know how to properly use the car, but the more you drive a car, eventually it becomes a thing where you don't really have to think about too much, and driving a car is just second nature. Same thing to like riding a bike. When you don't know how to ride a bike, you're going to be falling, you're going to be trying to think about how to properly ride a bike, but after you get used to it, you can just do it easily. So we'll go on to the next point, confidence. Confidence is a vibe. It's the feeling that exudes some sort of positive, vibe in the area. When you're confident, it does overwrite doubts and hesitations. Someone who lacks confidence in being able to do something, like let's say drawing, for example, probably would hesitate on trying to draw because of that lack of confidence. But when you're confident, you're gonna draw, like whatever. You're gonna you're gonna be proud to show off your skill probably. So it's important to know that confidence does overwrite doubts and hesitation. So when you see someone confidently acting, you know that they are confident about something. They don't have any worries. They're not. It's important to have that general kind of abstract idea that there is something positive in the back of the mind of a confident person. So with confidence, it can influence people. When you have that vibe of positivity, it's easier to get people to rally behind that idea of whoever the confident person is. Especially if you're going through life in autopilot, when you come across a confident person, you're probably just going to allow yourself to follow under their wing very easily. And if you're not thinking about anything or looking for the signs of anything in particular about this person, you might end up in a state where you're just blindly following them. It's another thing, confidence can prevent growth. So when you're confident about something, you feel like you know it all, you feel like you're on top of the game, like there's nothing else you can really achieve from trying to listen to someone else with an opposing idea of whatever it is you're confident about. And that can prevent your growth. That's something to keep in mind as well. Confidence can be a trap. So you come across a confident person, like I said earlier, they have this vibe that just influences people to follow behind them. If that confident person is a manipulative person or has negative intentions, they can be using that as a tactic to try to influence you to do things you might regret later. So when you find yourself caught up in a confident person that inspires you to do things, once that piece of evidence comes out where maybe they don't know what they're talking about or something that would break that image of confidence you have of them, or that feeling of confidence you have in them, it might be challenging to really face that idea because you're so used to just relying on this person in some way that maybe it inspires you to fight against whatever's breaking that illusion. Especially if they have something you desire about them, then you probably find yourself fighting for something that is going to collapse and probably will hurt you in the long run. So be careful when it comes to confident people. That goes up to our next point, desire and intentions. So intentions are planned, and desire is a strong feeling of wanting something. So your actions can reflect your desires and unveil your intentions. It's important to have that in mind because everything you choose to do it leaves some kind of evidence of whatever it is you're thinking, whatever your intentions are, what you're feeling probably. And if you're not good at understanding yourself and taking control of your own actions and choices, it's going to be a lot easier for other people to kind of use that against you. Be careful with mindless self-indulgence, because when you have a desire for something, you tend to act for that desire to try to achieve that desire in some way, that you get rid of any reasons or excuses that prevent you from stopping yourself to achieve that desire. The stronger the desire is, the more full throttle you're going to put into trying to achieve that desire. But if you feed your self-indulgence, that desire, you're probably going to end up feeding your negative traits to some extent. That type of thinking tends to nurture a selfish lifestyle without any real concern about the negative consequences of your actions. So an example would be like eating candy. Let's say you have strong desire for eating candy, you just keep munching, and you're like, I know it's bad for me, it's got a lot of sugar, whatever, but I'm just going to keep eating and eating and eating it. And the more you indulge in that desire, the easier it is for it to just become another everyday thing where you just habitually eat candy every time you see it, and it ends up damaging your body. Your health goes bad, and it it's basically just a subconscious choice you make at this point because you're just so used to doing it so much. So be careful with indulging your desires so often and so quickly. Like, really think about your actions and the potential consequences of them, and use that as a reason to kind of help you guide your life in the way that you want it to be. And just touching up on intentions again, sometimes your actions may not reflect your intentions as easily as you want them to, but I mean, that's the whole point of, planning out what it is you want to try to do. You choose your actions to achieve your goal, and you go about it a specific way. So really think about all the possibilities of the ways you can choose to go about things. Intentions, whether it's good or bad, just understand your intentions. Try to really understand those, because you can try to leave a bread trail of crumbs for other people to kind of pick up on who you are as a person. But the goal of this video isn't necessarily how to get other people to understand you, but how you can understand yourself better, and to really clarify those intentions you have, to really understand your desires and the rest of the things that we're going to cover in the rest of this video. And so, going back to that scenario where you're teasing someone, that's kind of an action based off of your emotions. So you're feeling giddy, you feel like you like this person, so it inspires you to want to do something in order to get their attention. And you can go about that any way you want, whether it be teasing or just complimenting, giving them flowers or whatever. That emotion you feel inspires you to take those actions. And likewise, when you're feeling sad or negative in some way, maybe angry, that emotion can inspire you to isolate yourself, to just close yourself off from everyone. You just don't want to deal with people. That's a reflection of how you feel, which is perceived from others based on how you choose to go about things, the actions you choose to take. Then you got actions that you take without much thought. You're pretty much going on autopilot, letting your subconscious guide your actions, or maybe you just have the feeling of totally giving up. So any effort just seems meaningless to you, and you just go with the flow. Those are actions that are not consciously done, but rather done with your subconscious, like you're not thinking about anything. This type of mindset, it's easier for other people to influence you, to make a bigger impact on you. They probably could control you a little bit more if you're not really paying attention to the signs. So we're going to talk about belief and trust. Belief is something that you accept to be true, and trust is a firm belief in that truth. When you think about trust, it can be built with a positive experience, and it can be broken with negative ones. So you got to be careful with that. Again, it all comes down to how you perceive things, but this is just a general idea of what I believe it's like. Then you got blind trust, which can be built through positive experience. However, you are either actively avoiding the possibility that you are wrong, or simply aware of the possibility that things could be wrong. This is where confidence kind of overshadows that. It kind of gives birth to blind trust, especially if you don't know that person very well, or if you don't know their intentions. But when it comes to yourself, if you can try to identify where you have blind trust in someone or something, it'll help you take the necessary steps to kind of avoid putting yourself in a situation you don't want to be put in, which is why experience helps, because when you lack experience, it's easier for people to inspire that blind trust within you. But when you have experience, maybe you can see the clues, maybe you've gone through something similar, and it can help you stop that blind trust. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go over some scenario examples just to kind of briefly cover up what we talked about so far. We said that actions are a reflection of how you feel or what you're thinking. An example would be hunger. I gave you water as an example earlier, but hunger is another way to think about it. When you're hungry, you're probably going to take actions to get yourself some food. This could be reflected through barbecuing, cooking, buying a bologna sandwich, going to a gas station to buy some hot dogs, or a restaurant. Those are all actions that kind of reflect that you're hungry. And they're all different types of actions, but they all essentially reflect that you're hungry. Then you got the feeling of wanting to avoid things, which is reflected through your negative actions or influenced by your negative experiences. An example would be, let's say you see a cute dog you want to pet. And, dogs are known for being cute and cuddly sometimes. Maybe you're just unaware of the vicious side of dogs. But you decide to pet a dog, and then suddenly it bites you. Creates this kind of fear. Your trust in the cuddly nature of a dog is broken, and because of that, you now try to avoid that dog, or maybe multiple dogs, to some extent. You end up developing some sort of fear. The avoidance of dogs is a reflection of that fear you carry about dogs. Confidence and desire built through positive experience, building up trust per se. Like your self-esteem. Maybe after you hit the gym, you started dressing nice, you started receiving all these compliments from other people. It feeds your self-esteem and it makes you feel good. It's a positive experience, and it builds your trust that you actually look good, that you're, presentable. That repetitive experience of compliments really feeds into that. And so you learn to build a trust that your style is cool and you seem to be healthy if you're working out a lot. Then you got confidence built by blind trust and then revealed at a bad time. Let's say you have a friend who always seems to agree with your ideas, and then suddenly when those ideas are challenged, they argue against your ideas. You're like, what happened, man? I thought we were in the same boat. Like, I thought we both liked this movie, for example. Like, why are you hating on this movie all of a sudden? Another example would be, maybe you just vibed with someone very well, and you built your trust in them and you thought they were cool, and then all of a sudden something happens where their true colors are shown. They start snapping at people, they start treating you mean. Maybe they come across as a completely different person than what you initially imagined based off of that initial vibe. Or there's some cases where maybe they're challenging your ideas and you don't feel comfortable analyzing those ideas. So because of that negative experience of analyzing your ideas causes you to lack trust in this person. Sometimes you have your own reasons for trusting people or not trusting people that may be warranted or unwarranted. You got to really reflect on your reasons or the way you view things and stuff like that to really discern whether or not someone's worth that trust or not. But without that, you're just blindly trusting people, and you're letting your emotions and your mindless self-indulgence guide you, your subconscious guide you, and those aren't things you should really rely on if you want to take control of your life. So the next part is using emotions to guide introspection. So emotions are a natural, instinctive state of mind, a feeling that comes to you based off of the situation you're in. Those emotions can become extreme the more invested you are in that scenario. An example would be you're feeling great sadness after your trust is broken, or maybe you're extremely happy when you experience a positive outcome. The greater the emotion, the easier it is to remember that scenario. It may even possibly influence you to take certain actions in the future because of that knowledge. You gotta learn to recognize your emotions at any given moment to become aware of why you act the way you do, to be aware of the feeling that causes you to act that way. Reflect on what caused that feeling and attribute those reasons into categories. One category, these emotions are a result based off of someone else's actions. And the other category is, these emotions are a result based off of your own understanding of the situation. So learning or being able to use your emotions to guide your introspection, you gotta learn how to take accountability. That's gonna be a tough pill to swallow because sometimes we want to believe certain things about ourselves that are being challenged by others. Let's go over accountability. That's the next point. What is accountability? Taking responsibility for your own actions. It's easy to blame others for why things happen the way they do, but that might not always be the case. Rather than seeking to blame someone else first, learn to question if you are the one at fault first. Then after, you can consider how others may have contributed to the results or the problems that you're facing. This is important because if you don't take accountability, you're automatically removing the possibility for self-improvement. And when you do that, you'll probably face the same problems over and over again. And by doing so, you're giving up your power and only leaving yourself in a state of confusion and ignorance. You're only hurting yourself. But taking accountability isn't as bad as you might feel it is. This goes to our next point, accepting who you are, the good and the bad. It's important to know that we are all humans, and no one is completely good or evil. even if they seem really close to being that way. And that includes yourself. You're going to take actions that others will see as good, or sometimes they'll see as bad. You might even question if you're a good person. And if you're not questioning that, you're probably building an easier path to being a bad person. When you question things, it shows that you are concerned about those things. So questioning your actions is okay to do, as it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person for even thinking about those questions. In fact, it might actually be showing that you're trying to be a good person, which is something good people tend to do. That is to say, they try to find the best solution for things, with others in mind, of course, because if they don't have others in mind, then that's probably just selfish thinking. So the key is, accept the good and the bad that's already passed, and know that your past doesn't define you, although it does give evidence to the type of character you are. But even so, there's always that character arc you can find where you change to become the hero of your own story. So don't be afraid of change, because even if you don't want to change, you're going to change. Your subconscious is evidence of that. So why not consciously choose to become the type of person you want to be? Build the type of subconscious you want through repetitive actions of conscious choices, rather than letting others influence you with their questionable charisma and social status. You're going to be okay. Life is a journey. You can walk through it intentionally or unintentionally. Just know that if you choose to go through it unintentionally, letting your unguided subconscious influence you, then you'll probably be angry and sad most of the time. So I implore you to avoid living a life being mindlessly self-indulgent, because it's easy for people to fake a vibe at your expense.